So let's talk a little bit about prison safety and prison reform. Prison reform allegedly coming this winter, but you have questions, you have concerns about contraband specifically.
Yes.
Walk us through what that looks like.
So I have two prisons, maximum security prisons in my district, 5 Points here in Seneca County, and a facility in Auburn as well. And I work very closely with NYSCOBA, the corrections officers, and others. One of the problems that we have, and I actually first heard about this from parents who came to one of my mobile office hours. Their son is in prison. He's a drug addict, and they were telling me how he is having such a hard time kicking the drug habit while he's in prison because of the availability of drugs. And then add to that all the stories I hear and that we read about the different riots, the violence that occurs in the prison, the attacks on guards, prisoners on prisoners, etc. So I worked with NYSCOBA on legislation that would do more to screen visitors who are coming into the prisons, so visitor screening. And it includes like common sense measures, not very costly measures, but having canines at the entrances on a rotating basis, doing visitor screenings, pat downs, and at one point it includes doing a search of visitors' cars. Because the data shows that the contraband is coming in from people from the outside. And whether that's the drugs, whether it's weapons, it's coming in from the outside. And right now, the guards are so limited in what they can do. So getting back to your point about working with the assembly to try and get things actually completed, I worked with an assembly sponsor on this contraband bill. And in the first go-round, they thought it was too restrictive. So we did things to amend it. Like, for instance, we removed the screening of the visitors' cars. We backed down on the number of days that canines would be at the prisons. I did everything I could, working with the corrections officers, NYSCOBA, and the assembly members to get something that would pass, be a starting point for us, right? I even got the money that it would take to do a part of that implementation into the budget. So it was a green light, it was go, it should have happened. And at the last minute, the second revision, again, the assembly failed to pass it. They failed to take it up.
So are you concerned at all about what a prison reform package could look like coming from the governor's administration, which, if anything, seems to be a little lax on real forceful policy in this neck of the woods?
I am concerned, and I think that the governor's talking about doing something come January or whenever. But look, we could do something right now. We could get this legislation that I proposed. We could get it passed. We could start right now, helping to protect the prisoners and our guards who work there. We don't have to wait to do anything. When I first started as senator, one of the first calls I made was to the commissioner or the acting commissioner about the use of the sprays in the prisons, because I had heard from NYSCOBA that's an effective tool, but they weren't using it in either of my prisons. So I called the commissioner to find about the rollout program. And honestly, to be quite blunt with you, I was given kind of the runaround until I said, look, I want specific dates. If you're saying you can't hand out the gas until there's training, when's that training scheduled? So we finally have that in our prisons, and it is an effective tool. But sometimes I think it's just about putting the pressure on. And this kind of reminds me, this is one thing about me. A lot of people in Albany, they gave me a nickname. They call me Persistent Pam because I just keep pushing. I honestly think behind my back, it's pain in the ass Pam. But you have to stay on top of things, and I'm good at that. My staff is good at that. We keep spreadsheets, we monitor everything. So I think that really helps, and that's why in a number of areas I've been successful. My first year in office, I had 11 pieces of legislation that were actually signed into law. That was more than any other freshman senator in the majority. This year I have 25 bills. Probably half of them didn't pass the assembly. The other half, I'm wondering if the governor's going to sign off on them. I'll know at the end of the year. But I want to say that Albany is frustrating because there's so many things we could do, common sense things to help people make their lives better, right? But it's such, I don't know what it is, politics, I don't know.
Is it improving a little bit as folks like you get elected and go to Albany and try to turn the tables and make a difference in the right ways?
I feel like things are improving. I feel like a lot of times in the media and the newsprint, what we read about are all the negative things that go on. And there are negative things, all the corruption and everything. But I feel like there is a change happening. You know, important pieces of legislation, the Lake Ontario Flood Relief Bill. I teamed up with the leader of the Assembly, Joe Morelli. We got that passed. Again, as a freshman senator, that was the largest single relief bill and funding that was ever passed in New York State's history. I mean, and again, it's working with partners in the Assembly. There have been other instances where I've been able to partner with folks in the Assembly and get things done. But when it comes to crimes, corrections, it just seems like Brittany's Law is a good example.
Great example.
It just comes to a screeching halt. So last summer, I met with a few Assembly people individually and asked them for support on Brittany's Law. Even before I asked them for support, I asked them, what's holding you up on this? Why aren't you passing this? You know, what are you guys talking about? What do we need to do to get that bill passed? And there's just not a clear answer. I've been working with Dale Driscoll now for almost 2 years. We have a meeting coming up, and actually it's with Dale Driscoll and Tiffany Folk, because Tiffany's going to help as well. But I think one of the things we need to do with Brittany's Law to get that passed is that we have to get the domestic violence organizations and agencies to support the bill. Right now they don't support the bill, and I think that may be holding back some of the Assembly members. So we need to focus on finding out why the domestic violence organizations don't support it, doing what we can to address it, and revising the bill and getting it back out there. We have the support. Wayne County Sheriff Barry Verts, he's now the president of the New York State Sheriff's Association. Last year I had him out. He spoke at a press conference. We had other domestic violence victims there speaking. It was so impactful. How anyone could turn around and vote no, honestly, I don't get it. I don't get it.
I think that's interesting, because here you are, you're in the fight, you're fighting it on a daily basis, and even you're left scratching your head on some of these bills, just saying, why? How did we get here? What is this?